Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Paribraj, Jagacharjavaja, Asto Tarasata Sri Sriman Jagat Guru, Srila Bhakti, Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai, Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Kula Churamani, Sava Shastra Siddhanta Vit, Srila Bhakti Rakak, Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai, Nitya Leela Bhravistam Vishnupad, Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai, Rupa Nuga Gurubhagya ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Premsika Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadha Sri Vas Adi Gaura Bhakta Brinda ki Jai. Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswata Acharya Brinda ki Jai, Samadvaita Vaishnava Mandali ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda ki Jai, all the assembled devotees ki Jai, all the world devotees ki Jai, Sri Harinama Sankirtan ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bam. So, welcome everyone to our Sunday afternoon talk, broadcast live from the East London Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, London chapter. And as always, we're going through the books of our Guru Varga, currently going through the books of Srila Govinda Maharaj, and on the last part now of Affectionate Guidance, which is a collection of articles and also letters and so many things that were perhaps previously published in different magazines or pamphlets and so on, and being made into a book to preserve them. And also today is Ekadashi day. Ekadashi means the 11th day of the waxing or waning moon, so twice a month that is coming, and we're observing fasting on that day from grains, pulses and so on, and also minimizing our body functions as much as possible, so that we can utilize our time for Krishna consciousness, chanting more, reading more, serving more, essentially. So this chapter that we started last week, from section 4, chapter 27, it's called Excerpt from Letters. This is a reply to a letter from Srila Govinda Maharaj. In the presence of, let me put my microphone on so they can hear me in the kitchen. Hare Krishna. Okay. In the presence of Sriman Mahaprabhu and after Sriman Mahaprabhu in our Sampradaya, up to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, no one took saffron cloth or formal Vedic sannyas dress. But all of them, as well as our Guru Parampara and the Goswamis, were not only Paramahansa, but more than that, they are all extreme exclusive servitors in the line of Srila Rupa Goswami to Sri Sri Radha Govinda. They follow the conception of Naham Vipro Nacha Narapatir Napi Vaisho Nashudro. They followed this conception of Mahaprabhu with extreme humility. Not only that, but Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami indicated that it is not necessary for the Vaishnavas to take saffron cloth. Rakta Basra Vaishnavera Porite na Yuyaya Kona Pravashire Dimu Ki Kaja Uhaya, from the Antilila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Mahaprabhu proudly declared about his devotees, Kanta Karagaya Mora Kangala Bhakta Gana Brindavane Aile Tandera Kariha Palana, from the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Actually, the indication of Mahaprabhu is that his followers will not be attached to any mundane relativities, but they will be exclusively attached to pure devotional life. Therefore, in the time of the Sad Goswamis, the 6 Goswamis, and after Sad Goswami, when Narottam Thakur, Srinivasacharya, Vishwanath Chakrabarti, etc., widely preached, up to that time Sriman Mahaprabhu's Sampradaya was not so much polluted by Sahajism. Some pollution was always there in a shadow form, no doubt, as Sahajism. But after Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur and Baladev Vidyabhushan, the real preaching conception of Sriman Mahaprabhu was hidden, and widely no one preached it. But they practiced. Like the activity of Kali, the cloud of Mayavad and Sahajism covered almost the whole of pure Vaishnavism. It is expressed by Srila Guru Maharaj in his Sri Bhaktivinoda Biraha Dasakam. Dharmas Chardharma Gato Gyataeva Satata Jogascha Bogatmako Gyane Shunya Gatir Japena Tapasa Gayatir Jigang Saiva Cha Dane Dambi Gata Nuraga Bhajane Dusta Pacharojada Buddhim Buddhi Matam Vibeda Hi Tadadatra Bhavan Prasita. At that time, Anuraga Bhajan, exclusive devotional practices, became completely polluted by Sahajism. At that time, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared as the divine grace of Sriman Mahaprabhu in the mundane world as a transcendental sampradaya purifier and re-establisher. Wholeheartedly, with his full energy, he tried to re-establish the pure Mahaprabhu's conception by his melted heart prayers. He was paradukha dukhi, extremely sorrowful to see the pain of the conditioned souls. As much as possible by him, he tried to remove and clean the obstacles from our vision of the spiritual sky. He prayed to Mahaprabhu, please send your merciful glance in the form of a Vaishnava Acharya. Through his divine prayer, we have got Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as an illustrious, exalted, unique Sampradaya Acharya of Sriman Mahaprabhu. Srila Saraswati Thakur showed himself from his childhood as a great general in our Sampradaya. He declared totalitarian war against Maya, especially Mayavad and Sahajism. He showed us the position of real Ragamarga. It is expressed in a few words, and you have seen that engraved on the front of our Nat Mandir. Matala Harijana Kirtana Range, Pujala Ragapata, Gora Babange. He caused Mahaprabhu's fire of Mahasankirtan Yagya to again blaze by his divine activities. He used everything necessary, and he bought from the Ramanuja Sampradaya the Tridanda Sannyas. It was hidden in Bengal, but mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. But it existed in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, and through that he re-established Daiva Varnashram Dharma and showed that the position of the devotees of Krishna is the supreme position, and that the position of a devotee of Krishna is so high and unquestionable. He preached everywhere in this mundane plane that what is existing in the form of religion of the jiva souls is actually all bogus. Pritiviti jata kata dharma name chale, bhagavata kahe sabha paripurna chale. This was his preaching line. He organized again the Varnashram Dharma, no doubt, but that was in the line of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. However, supremely he showed through the divine activity, his divine activity, the religion of the Jiva soul that is manifested by Vaishnava Dharma. It is not dependent upon any mundane consideration or even the Vedic rulings. Tasmat tvam udavatsritya chodanam pratichodanam pravritin cha navritim cha Shrotabhyam shrutameva cha mamekam eva sharanam atmanam sarvadehinam jahi sarvatma bhavena mayasya hi akutobhyaha. The rulings given in the Vedas, the Shruti and Smriti, whatever you have heard before and will hear in the future, leave it all, fully surrender to Krishna and serve him wholeheartedly. Here is the point of Srila Saraswati Thakur, service to Krishna. Whatever is necessary for that service, we shall follow. Where there is no service, we have no existence. But for the service of Krishna, we can do anything and everything under proper guidance. Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada and Srila Guru Maharaj were both in that line, and they also showed just how much and what we can do for the service of Krishna. Now the whole world, through their divine service preaching, is chanting and dancing with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. They proved what Mahaprabhu said, Pritivitiyache jata nagaradigram, sarvatra prachara hoibe moranam. They took all facilities from this mundane ground, and they took all facilities from the Vedic scriptures in order to establish Krishna consciousness in the heart of every Jiva soul, without consideration of male or female, Stri Purusha Nirvisheshe. That was Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur's thesis. But you know that it is natural that the antithesis or the antithesis always disturbs the thesis, especially when the male-female conception comes to disturb the mind of the practitioners. For their protection, we follow the system of brahmacharya, grihastha, etc. And if necessary, we can utilize that theory for our preaching program. No doubt we are not sannyasis, brahmacharis or grihasthas, but for the preaching purpose and for the protection of the male and female practitioners, we can utilize saffron as a guard for their preaching life, because preaching is the highest within our practicing process, Shravan and Kirtan. Tara madhye sarva shrestha nama sankirtan, nira parade nama laile paya premadam. Shravan and Kirtan, but it is necessary to do this without offense to Sri Guru Vaishnava. It was the plan of Srila Guru Maharaj to make a ladies' party for preaching Krishna consciousness in the form of brahmacharinis. It was for this that in his trust board and in his last will and testament, he gave that preference to the ladies. In a totalitarian war field, the general will not hesitate to take the facility of whatever is immediately necessary for the safety of the soldiers and for winning the battle. This was the teaching of Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. We are the insignificant followers of them, and we have no hesitation to take the facilities from anywhere and everywhere for the protection of our soldiers, because nowhere is this prohibited. Their saffron cloth does not mean sannyas, but it is the protection garment for our servitors from the lustful feelings like an asbestos suit to protect them from the blazing fire they face in the preaching field. Finally, I can say that our devotees have taken a vow until death, not sannyas, for their exclusive devotional preaching practicing life. It was not done with the sannyas mantra, but it was more than that. If anyone will try to understand and honor this, he will be liberated from the illusory environment. I trust this meets you, continuing steadily your service life. Sometimes we would see Guru Maharaj would, that his cloth became so faded that you couldn't even tell it was saffron. And so then they'd make some new cloth for him. But he never liked to wear like really dark saffron cloth. He would say, this is not the dress of the Vaishnava, but this is for preaching that we're adopting that, and adopting the Tridanda and all of these things. He said, so our Guru Maharaj, meaning Saraswat Thakur, he did this, and so we are following that line. But we are not thinking of ourselves as sannyasis or brahmacharis or grihastas or anything of the kind, but only that we are the servant of the Vaishnavas. This is our identity. And this is the safe position. Actually, Srila Govinda Maharaj, quite often he said, my preference is the Grihastha ashram. He said, I liking that is the best ashram for practicing Krishna consciousness from. Because in that situation, there's nowhere to go. You know, you're already like the baseline, in the baseline. And he said, everyone telling, you know, oh, the deep dark well of household life and all of this. He said, but you know, Prabhu, that was not my experience. My experience was I had a very happy family life. And it's true, actually, you know, that his wife was a very lovely lady. I met her a couple of times. She was a nurse. And he had 3 daughters also, and they were also very nice. Sometimes they were coming to the mott to see Maharaj, and I talked to one, I forget their names now, but I talked to one of his daughters, and I cheekily I asked her, so what was it like having Govinda Maharaj as your dad, you know, your father? And she said, he was just our dad, you know. What do you want me to say? You know, he was my dad. And I said, okay, but then what did he like to do, you know, like at home? What was his, you know, like, and he said, oh, he liked to sing bhajan. And so always we were at home, everyone, whole family singing bhajan. I said, and did he have a favorite bhajan? And she said, yes. He liked very much Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. He used to like to sing that very much at home. So yeah, then, and he told, actually he said here upstairs here one time, he said to me, I like the Grihastha ashram is very good. He said, but what I don't like is that people will be Grihastha before being married. As that became a kind of a fashion, right? The idea was, and some people express this to me, you've got to try on a few pairs of shoes before you get one that fits nicely, you know. but that's not really the proper way to do things. You know? It's not a respectable way to enter into that ashram. In fact, for some time we had a girl, one devotee's daughter, who was living here. She was from Venezuela, and her mother was a friend of Ishanuga. So she lived with us in our home, and she was like our other daughter. And but anyway, one of the devotees, he took a shine to her and was thinking, oh, maybe they were thinking maybe they would get married, But then one day he asked me here, he said, would you give your blessings to us that we can live together? Try a trial kind of living together, see if we get on and everything, And I said, well, no, I can't do that, Prabhu, So if you'd just done it, I wouldn't have said anything. But if you have to ask me, then I can't say, yeah, my blessings, because I know that Srila Gurudev didn't like that, didn't approve of that. So, if you'd have just done it, I wouldn't have said anything. It's your business. But if you're asking me for my blessing, then I can't give that. And I can't say that your guru would approve of that either, So, and that was, Srila Sridhar Maharaj's stance about marriage, actually. Guru Maharaj was not really in favor of marriage very much. Although he was married, but that was, arranged by his family. And also Srila Govinda Maharaj's marriage was arranged by his family. And his Sanskrit teacher, Dr. Dal Govinda Shastri, he arranged the match between Govinda Maharaj and his wife. But because of that, both he and Govinda Maharaj's mother, she lived in the mott in her last days. We called her Takoma. But both his mother and Dr. Shastri, they weren't allowed to come to the mott. Guru Maharaj was angry with them for arranging Govinda Maharaj's marriage. After Guru Maharaj's passing, then Govinda Maharaj relaxed that and they were allowed to come there. But Guru Maharaj didn't like that. And then there were two devotees here in the UK, very nice devotees, and they're still together now. And they have 3 children, or those children are all grown up and, I guess married and got kids of their own and things like that. But when they wanted to get married, Guru Maharaj was very displeased about that. And Anuradha, who was Guru Maharaj's secretary's wife, she told Guru Maharaj, or these 2 devotees, they want your permission to get married. And who are they? And he told their names. And Guru Maharaj said, oh, they come to me promising to serve Mahaprabhu, and now they want to go for flesh eating. That was the comment that he made, heavy comment. Now they want to go for flesh eating. And he was very disturbed by that. Then he said, so what were their names before? And then he said what their names were. And he said, so they will be that again. They will strike their name from the book. You ask them to return their japamala. It's really heavy. So, and to this day, I don't think they know this. That maybe they do now if they're watching this one. So, but no, that's why I've not told their name. But anyway, so then Anuradha, she told Guru Maharaj a bit of a white lie. As you know, Guru Maharaj doesn't know what the system is in the West, to marriage and all of those things. And so she, very clever, she said to Guru Maharaj, oh, her parents want her to get married, and if she doesn't marry that Prabhu, they'll just marry her to some meat eater, non-devotee. And then Guru Maharaj paused. Oh, then they can, she can marry him. That would be better. And they were married, and they didn't have to send their beads back, But after that, then Guru Maharaj, kind of made a ruling. He said, that because Guru Maharaj didn't ever have marriage in the temple or anything like that, Prabhupada did that, of course, but that was because otherwise his disciples would have just been living like hippies together, which they were already. So Prabhupada, saw that that was a necessity. At least they should get married, you know. But Guru Maharaj didn't approve any of that, like ever, that there would be marriage ceremony in the temple. But then he said afterwards, you know, that it's like your affair. If they want to get married, it's their affair. But my only like demand from them is that wherever they are, that their marriage is recognized as legal in their country, so as not to bring any bad name on the mission. And he said, but I don't, you know, I'm not saying they have to have fire yagya or any of these things, you know. That wasn't Guru Maharaj's criteria. Marriage, he considered it more of a secular thing, you know, marriage. So, but anyway, his, you know, like his stance changed after that on it. And Guru Maharaj is like so strict about everything, you know. When I asked Srila Govinda Maharaj, one time I was there and I was saying, I was hearing from Govinda Maharaj about Srila Guru Maharaj's preaching, you know, in the time of Saraswat Thakur and after, you know, he would travel for preaching, and Govinda Maharaj telling us so many of the stories, and you know, his battle with opposing pandits and Shaivites and like different opposition, Guru Maharaj defeating them all, and I said, like kind of a bit cavalier, I suppose, but I said, I wish I could have been here to see that, you know, to see that kind of preaching. And then Govinda Maharaj just started laughing, and he said, no, Prabhu, you would not have been able to stay. And I was like, what? And he said, no, Guru Maharaj was so strict that no one could live with him. He said, I can count on one hand his disciples that could actually live with him, because whoever lived with him, whatever his standard was, he expected them also to follow that same standard who lived with him, and no one could tolerate it. You know, Srila Govinda Maharaj said, if I did anything wrong, Guru Maharaj is beating me, and like heavily beating me, and he said, and no one can tolerate that, but I tolerated and I stayed. He said, but no one else could tolerate Guru Maharaj, so strict. And another time he told us when Guru Maharaj was beating him, you know, I don't remember what it was, but he was beating him for something, and Govinda Maharaj said, I was coming closer to Guru Maharaj, you know, and Guru Maharaj saying, why are you coming closer? And Govinda Maharaj said, because you don't know how to beat properly, Maharaj. You know, you have to be like close to be able to beat nicely. So that's why I'm coming closer. Anyway, but when we came to him, in the words of Srila Govinda Maharaj, he said, now he's in his benevolent grandfather stage, you know. Like the grandfather, always very affectionate to the children, even more than the parents sometimes, you know. So that was our fortune, really, that Guru Maharaj was in that mood after we came to him.
You remember we had that debate a couple of years ago, Rupak?
Yeah.
His mother told him, first you get married,
yeah.
then you get initiated.
Yeah, I know. He may be also watching this, I don't know. Sometimes he watches, but it's true, yeah, but that was really, I think, and maybe I shouldn't say, in case he is watching, but I think his mother's idea was that if he gets married, she'll get rid of that Hare Krishna business from him, you know. That idea about initiation and that, she'll purge him of that, of a good wife, you know.
But you were talking about people trying to have a trial period, but wasn't it the Indian system before that they compare horoscopes?
Yeah, all of that, yeah. That, and still today, you know, actually that still happens. Before Ishnuga and I married, we consulted with an astrologer, and that was said very good compatibility. But my first wife, very bad compatibility. It says, you know, you're meant to have like, I think like 30 minimum 30 points of compatibility to get before you should even attempt that, right? But when we had that compatibility test done, the astrology, it was only 7 points. But I was already invested in that idea, so I just like, okay, I'm doing it anyway, and it was, as you know, our relationship was a little bit turbulent with my first wife, but she was a good lady, and yeah. But I think with Ishanuga and I, we had like maybe 70 points of compatibility.
Oh,
And
that's great.
yeah, I don't remember all of that, but yeah, it's kind of good advice. But the thing is, it's difficult to find a good astrologer, right? Because most astrologers, especially in India, they want to sell you gemstones. Most astrologers have affiliated with the jewelers, and so some of them actually have their office in the jeweler's shop. You go there and they'll cast your chart, read your palm, all of that, and tell you what stones you need, In fact, the first time I met Srila Govinda Maharaj outside of the temple, outside of the mott, was in Calcutta. I was kind of into astrology for a while, and somebody who I thought was, fairly au fait with the whole astrology thing. He knew some astrologers in Calcutta, and he recommended 3 to me that he considered to be good. And so I went and I saw all of those 3. They all cast my chart for me, but one of them, I went. His office was in a jeweler's shop, and in Calcutta, a bit like how it used to be, I suppose, in London at one time, like all of the jewelers, all the shops are in the same area, Like here, we have Hatton Cross, right? Hatton Gardens in London, where they have all the jewelers' shops. So it's a bit like that in Calcutta. I forget the area or anything about it. It's been so long ago, but. So anyway, I had an appointment to see that astrologer there that afternoon, and as when I arrived there, he was already seeing somebody, and when that person came out, it was Govinda Maharaj. He'd gone there to consult with him, and we spoke and everything, Then because he was, one of Govinda Maharaj's titles was Jyotir Bhushan. He was like quite an accomplished astrologer, but he was consulting with this astrologer. I don't know what about, or anything. He didn't tell me that, but I figured, if Govinda Maharaj is consulting with him, he's probably pretty good. So I maybe made the right choice coming to see him. Anyway, all 3 of them, they some difference of opinion and some common things that they all agreed on. So I just took all 3 of them, and all the points that they all agreed on, I kind of took those and discarded the rest, really, So what gems I should wear and all of those things, and I did for a long time. Now you see I don't have any, but for a long time I used to. Sapphire was, I meant to wear a sapphire, yellow sapphire, and a pearl. And I wore those for a long time. Anyhow, and sometimes Srila Sridhar Maharaj also would consult with the Jyotish Guru Maharaj also used numerology for calculating good days and all of that, and like for giving initiation, he'd consult with the Panjika. But when Govinda Maharaj came here, and somebody, maybe one of his assistants, said, like when he was thinking about like what day would be a good day to give initiation, and he said that devotee said, what does the Panjika say? And Govinda Maharaj said, no, Panjika doesn't work outside India. It only works in India. So, didn't say why, but anyway, why was I talking about astrology and that? What was that all about?
Marriages.
Oh, marriages, yeah. So you know, you take your chances. A marriage is always like that, and especially today, everybody assumes that it's not going to work out. That everyone nowadays is kind of figures that after a few years they'll be divorced, and there often is too. You know, so you know, don't rush into that. You know, that's even something they say in England. You know, in English is
Yes.
okay. There is marry in haste, repent at your leisure. So, anyway,
Repent.
at your leisure.
Oh.
You know, like take your time to repent if you marry in haste. And it is good. So all of those things are kind of have some relevance in a relative way. But you know, marriage is a relative thing. It's not an absolute relationship. But I'd see if you can find a good Vaishnava wife, then you're extremely blessed. Because I see, and I have to consider myself to be one of those blessed people. And I actually think that Ishanuga was Srila Govinda Maharaj's gift to me. And because I see, like many of our godbrothers, their wives always complain, why are you spending so much time at the temple? Why are you not here? Why are you, And I never get that from her. She's always encouraging me to go to the temple, encouraging me to do service, and we want to do service together. And if that's the case, then that's a very good, like a good start at least. That then, because there's so many considerations in married life, and especially when the children come and everything. But if together you can try to serve Krishna, then that's very helpful. That's like what I would consider a good marriage. No marriage is perfect. Like no relationship is perfect. You always have to work on that. And it's good to work on that. And my personal advice is, don't think that you're going to get some submissive Vedic wife, that's just going to be your slave and do anything that you want, because that's just not the world that we live in. And really, you don't want that. You want somebody who's at least has some brain, that you can discuss things with, and But anyway, but it is, it's a sacred ashram, the Grihastha ashram. It's a sacred ashram, so we should, if we enter into that, we should try and think of it in that way, for the service of Hari Guru and Vaishnava. Then that will be good. But I see so many devotees who have trouble in their marriage, and it makes me sad actually to see that. And also, because we're in the modern world, it's so easy to just say, okay, let's get divorced. You know what I mean? In older times, in Krishna consciousness, that there's not even a consideration divorce. It wasn't even allowable. That doesn't mean that I say nobody should get divorced. Like I heard Shiva Ram Swami in ISKCON said, anyone who gets divorced should be thrown out of ISKCON. So we wouldn't go that far. I'd say, I'd say like if some guy's beating 9 bells out of his wife, then get out of that relationship, and vice versa. Sometimes the wife can torture the husband. They know like how to push, because they know you very intimately. They know how to push all the right buttons to make you crazy. And also, and also sometimes they beat the husband as well, physically. We know that. But anyway, I remember when I was in Ukraine at the Veda Life Festival, I was sitting with Bhakti Goswami, and one of his disciples came, and she said to him, Maharaj, like knelt at his feet and everything. She said, Maharaj, will you bless me to find a good husband? And he said, no, never. I'll never give that blessing to you. And then, and he said, if that's what Krishna wills for you, that's another thing, but I will never give that. And he said, you remember this, all men are liars. He said to her, remember, all men are liars. And he said, so I'm not going to give you a blessing that you'll marry some man who will take you away from Krishna's service. I don't know if she could appreciate that or not, but anyhow.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Like at the almost the end.
Yeah.
Of the reading, Maharaj said that even higher than taking sannyas is the understanding, like what is the dedication for, who is it for, etc.
Yeah.
And also you read earlier, like it seems like sannyas is a tool.
Yes.
It's a tool for preaching.
Yeah.
It's a tool, like a vehicle to kind of be able to dedicate yourself without distractions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, like sometimes I have problems with understanding why are we giving so much importance to sannyas and so much. I hope it's not like inappropriate question, but
No, I
so
understand.
much glorification just because someone wears a sannyas dress, and I mean this person. So it's a complicated topic because I guess the guru or the guru who gave sannyas could see that this person is qualified, has some qualifications, but maybe looking from the history of ISKCON and everything, I find it difficult to understand so much glorification towards sannyas, and sometimes it seems like it's actually having a negative impact on people who take sannyas.
Yeah. Well, can I say, there was a time actually when Prabhupada said no more sannyas, because so many of the people he'd given sannyas to fell down, Then, so I'm not sure it's that when the guru gives sannyas that it's because he sees they're qualified, but more that he can utilize them for preaching. And I saw that especially in the case of Srila Govinda Maharaj. Many people that he gave sannyas to was because he wanted to utilize them for preaching in the mission, and that's why he did that. And I mean, some people twice he asked me to take sannyas, but he knows me, and he knows, like when I said no, Maharaj, I can't do it, and he said, yes, Prabhu, I understand, of course. So why we give so much honor to the sannyasi as well? One, because the principle is that they're sacrificing their life. That Prabhupada used to say, sannyas means accepting death early. So the idea is kai manobhakya, with thoughts, word, and deed we serve the Lord. It's an exclusive thing, but some people take sannyas. They think of it as some kind of promotion, like a social promotion, right? You're going to get the best prasadam, you know. They're going to get looked after. You'll get the best room. You'll get everything, you know. But that's really not what sannyas is meant for at all. And one time, actually, two devotees they came to ask. I was there. Two devotees came to ask Guru Maharaj for sannyas, and they came and asked him, we would like to request sannyas from you. And Guru Maharaj just looked at them and said, yes, everyone wants to be served, nobody wants to be a servant. Then one of those devotees, he said, actually, Maharaj, I don't want to take sannyas now, and he bowed down. Because was being pushed to take sannyas from other devotees. He was the main preacher in the country where he was. And they thought it would be better if he was a sannyasi. But after hearing that from Guru Maharaj, he said no. And he's a sannyasi now, but he remained in white for many years after that. The other person, it just like kind of went over his head, I think, that. And he continued, I want to take sannyas. And Guru Maharaj gave him sannyas. And I also remember on the day of his sannyas, he hired a photographer to come and take pictures of the ceremony, and it, you know, Krishna Sharan Prabhu was doing the fire sacrifice and everything, and he just kept getting up and to give directions to the photographer, you know, take some shots from up there. He didn't last as a sannyasi, you know. And actually we saw so many people, especially disciples of Prabhupada, who came to Sridhar Maharaj for sannyas. Almost all of them weren't able to maintain it. There was one devotee, I won't say his name, but he stayed with us in Dinsdale Road. He was French. I don't know if you remember him. And he was like kind of quite nasty to the devotees, you know, his attitude to us, you know. And he said, and when he left, he said, anyway, I'm going to take sannyas from Sridhar Maharaj now, you know, and you're all like useless and like. And anyway, so he went to Guru Maharaj, and Guru Maharaj gave him sannyas. And just shortly afterwards, after his sannyas, maybe within like 2-3 weeks after sannyas, I was in India at that time, and I went with a couple of other devotees. We went to Puri, and when we were walking on the beach, there was that sannyasi, not dressed in like swimming trunks and a denim shirt, with two girls one on either side of him, lying on the beach, you know. We recognized it. We walked by on the beach, you know, and said, Dhanavat Maharaj. Walked on by.
What was his reaction?
I don't know, we didn't stick around to see, but made us laugh.
But with sannyas, do you think it's as relevant in the Western world as it is in India?
Well, no, it isn't. But it does have some relevance, you know, because even in the West, the Indian people, they respect the saffron cloth still. I mean, just walking with Madhusudan Maharaj, when we went for a walk by the river near my house one day, and there's tons of Nepalese people where I live. You know, they're families of the Gurkhas. You know, they got permission to come and live in the UK after there was a big campaign, right? That they could fight and die for the UK, but they couldn't live in the UK. So there was a big campaign headed by Joanna Lumley, you know, the actress, because she was born in Nepal, so she had some like feeling of connection there. Anyway, they won the right, if they served in the Gurkha regiment, they won the right to be able to settle with their family here in the UK. So, and I think they all moved into Plumstead, where there's loads of them. They're just walking around the streets because they don't like to be indoors, you know. So they're always walking around the street in these groups of Nepalese. old ladies and old men. And we were just walking by the river, and they're all coming up to Madhusudan Maharaj and like giving pranam and everything, you know, because they saw the cloth. So, of course, amongst Western people, it doesn't really have so much significance, except for those who are devotees that know that, right? So, because we've been taught in that way, right? The Tridanda is the symbol of Narayan, the authority of Narayan in the world, and all of that, you know. So we give respect and honor to the sannyasi. Actually, it's more giving respect to the dress, because that's the dress of our guru, right? So if our guru gives that to somebody else, we honor that. But and you know, there are various things in the scriptures, right? When you see a sannyasi, if you don't make your obeisances to him, you have to fast for the rest of the day. That's like an injunction in the scripture, you know. So who wants to do that? so yeah, but there are those who want sannyas because they feel it's like a promotion, social promotion, you know, like we mentioned before. They'll get all the tidbits and, you know, all of the best prasadam, they'll get the ladies wanting to iron their clothes for them, and, you know, all of that. But really, that's not the reason or the purpose for sannyas. And we saw, like in the time of Guru Maharaj, those that he did give sannyas to, they were expected to like serve more, not just sit back and be served. And we saw that sometimes they would come to the London Mott and they would be engaged in doing puja and doing like with everybody else, the same as everybody else. So, but gradually that kind of they became a kind of a lads club, didn't they? You know, the sannyasis all sitting upstairs and everyone running up and down, feet to feed them all kinds of tasty things, and you know, okay, because the devotees want to like get the favor of a sadhu. That's the idea, right? So, in fact, I'm publishing a new Gaudiya Darshan just now, and there's an article in there by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is called "A Deliberation on the Association with Sadhus," and in there he says you shouldn't consider somebody a sadhu just by their dress, you know. First of all, he says that like in the modern age, that's the only way people think someone's a sadhu is because of their dress, and he said, but that isn't the criteria at all. So it's like where you draw the line between giving the formal respect and honor to the sannyasi, and being taken for a chump, you know, because they've got the dress on and they've found themselves a nice little niche now, you know. So and in that article also he says, and people think that association with the sadhu means, you know, like offering something to them, cooking for them, you know, like washing their clothes, or, you know, all these things. And Bhaktivinoda says, of course, all these things are good, but that's not sadhu sangha. Really, sadhu sangha means that you observe the saintly qualities of that person and you try to make your life like that. That's really what sadhu sangha means. He says in there, like the materialistic people, they'll come to the sadhu and say, oh, sadhu, please bless me, you know, and that my materialistic desires will go away, that I'll be able to worship Krishna, and like all of this. He said, but if that sannyasi were to say to them, or not sannyasi, sadhu, if that sadhu was to say to them, yes, may all of your materialistic desires vanish, and may your wealth and followers all disappear, and so that you'll be bereft of all of that and can take shelter of Krishna. Then they'll say, "Oh, Maharaj, don't bless us in that way. That's a curse. We don't want that." So he says, so all of that fawning around them is just hypocrisy, really. They don't know anything else except they're thinking money is everything, and that's really what they want. They want money, and they think if they get the blessings of a sadhu, that fortune's going to come to them. But Bhaktivinoda says this is all just hypocrisy. So within a mission, we have that, the sannyas and all of that, and the devotees honor that. But I still think there is that tendency to just judge by the external can be a stumbling block, to our own progress, because then we also become involved in that kind of deceit, So it's just not just, as Srila Govinda Maharaj used to say, anyone can make a chair for themselves, sit on that chair, put on the cloth. I remember I was asking somebody the other day when I was in Ireland. There was one Irish devotee, Punjabi Irish. You know what I'm talking about, right? Or maybe you don't. I don't know. Anyway, he was. He's again, because we're broadcasting, I don't want to say his name, but he was like Punjabi but Irish, and he was formerly a disciple of Guru in ISKCON. Then he met Srila Govinda Maharaj and asked Srila Govinda Maharaj if he could be his disciple, and Govinda Maharaj said, only with the permission of your Guru, So he wrote to his Guru, ISKCON Guru, and that Guru said, I'm more than happy, if you become a disciple of Govinda Maharaj, great, And so he showed Gurudev that letter, and Govinda Maharaj gave him initiation. And then he was dressed in white, and then he asked for saffron cloth. When Govinda Maharaj was here, Govinda Maharaj gave him the saffron cloth and he was like bright orange saffron cloth, and he came into the room, and he was a very kind of playful person. He was a good cook. He was a good cook, but very like boisterous, So, and always like playing with the kids and everything. So when he walked in the room with his saffron cloth on, all the kids, like in a chorus, they said, "You've been tangoed." Anyway, but I was asking about him the other day, like, does anyone know where he is? No one knows where he is. So anyway, I was looking, and I saw like some post on social media, and there was someone there like posted something, and going by some name that I'd not heard before, and then I like clicked on that to see because it kind of rang a bit familiar. Clicked on it, and it was him. And now he says in there, he shows a picture of Govinda Maharaj giving him the saffron cloth, right? And he says, this was when Govinda Maharaj made me the first Irish Punjabi acharya of the Gaudiya line. And he goes around the world like wearing sannyas dress. I don't know if he took sannyas from anyone, but definitely no one in our mission. And telling everyone he's an acharya, I don't know if people take initiation from him or anything, but like self-appointed. I don't know, if you've seen this article, maybe you've seen by I think his name's Gaur-Gopal Das, maybe your godbrother, I'm not sure, but anyway, he's written this article called The Era of Post-Turtle Gurus. Have you seen it? So anyway, he gives this, in there, he says, we live in the era of post-turtle gurus. And look, if when you read the article, I read it because I'm like, what does he mean by that? So I'm reading it, and he says, he gives this like story of a farmer going around his land, and like the border of his land, and he comes to this fence, and on the top of the fence there's a turtle on the post there, and it's just like on the top there. And he said somebody put him there because he couldn't get up there himself. Somebody else put him there, and now he's stuck. He can't move. He can't get down. He can't do anything. He's just there, And he said, "This is anurti." He said, "This is how these people all become these gurus now. Someone else puts them on that post, and they're just stuck there. They couldn't have got there themselves. They're up there now." And I thought it was quite a funny analogy, like that. So actually, this is always the dilemma, is the clash between the relative and the absolute. So all of those things, the dress and all of that formal thing, is form. It's all form, but it has a purpose, right? So the idea is, that the general people will give honor to that person, as a sannyasi or sadhu, because they're wearing that red cloth, and also it's meant to be the saffron cloth like a protection, in other words, it's kind of like a sign that says keep away, to the ladies, right? But our experience is that the ladies they want that, right? They don't want some guy in white who wants to get married. They want the guy who doesn't want to get married, because they think, they must be more advanced, and they want an advanced devotee as their husband, right? So they go after them. It's kind of a perverse thing, but so that these things have their positive and negative side. But really, we should try to look for the essence, for the substance of the thing, beyond dress and all this formal identification, because otherwise we're likely to be misled, and that means that we're going to get some kind of corrupted form of Krishna consciousness, and we're going to give that corrupted form to somebody else, and this way it all goes on like this, So the real thing is to try and understand what the substance is. That's why Guru Maharaj says, what's more important, the nose or the breath, right? So you can say that, but at the same time, to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because the substance is couched in a form. So we have that form, in the Krishna consciousness movement, and it has some purpose and it has some value, and even if we know that person is not, in our estimation, not fit and everything, but they're wearing that dress, we still have to show honor to the dress. The Guru Maharaj says that the father may be a lawyer and the son may be the judge, right? But so in their normal relationships, the father holds the superior position, but in the court, the father has to show honor to the judge. That's the proper etiquette, So it's something like that. We still have to show honor to their form, to the dress, because that's our guru's dress, right? So that someone wears that, we want to honor that. But at the same time, we don't like that if someone is, by their behavior, dishonoring our guru's dress. There's not such a a light thing, right? Not such a light thing. And seriously, you know, Srila Sridhar Maharaj gave sannyas to so many of Prabhupada's disciples, and almost all of them didn't make it, you know. So, yeah.
Mentions how Bhakti is two types to take sannyas. One is given,
Yeah.
he's given otherwise, another type takes sannyas for some kind of promotion. But sometimes I see that someone takes sannyas because they think, I can't work under this person, I can't work in the but I want to get myself fully to the mission.
Yeah.
But I'm clever. So I can preach. So
Yeah.
sometimes I see some people take sannyas for that reason, because they're kind of stuck in the middle and they don't know what to do.
Yeah. And that may have some value for that, you know. And Janardhan Maharaj told me that, actually, you know. When Prabhupada gave him sannyas, and he asked him, why do you want to take sannyas? He said, because I can't work with any of my godbrothers. Prabhupada said, yeah, that's all right. That's a good enough reason. You know. He gave it to him. And he also told me, like discreetly, Janardhan Maharaj, he said, I didn't want to subject any woman to me. You know, so that's why I took sannyas, you know. So, so okay, you know, but you know, sometimes things can also change, can't they? You know, someone may have the right feeling and motive and reasoning for taking sannyas, and then get caught up with all the trappings that come along with it. You know. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, he mentions that in his what's it called, Madhura Kadambani, that one of the pitfalls for a sadhaka is to enjoy with the guru's property, you know, because all of those things come to you, then you start enjoying with it, start thinking, yeah, I do deserve this, you know, I am what they say I am, you know. So very difficult thing. So this also in that an article actually in the New Gaudiya Darshan, Srila Guru Maharaj speaking about our parampara, and he says that in there. He says, this is the philosophy of the Vaishnavas, that I want to have many masters. They are worshipping Krishna. They are serving Gurudev. Let me be their servant eternally. This is like the safe thing, you know, the safe position to take. And we shouldn't be eager for you know, making ourselves important people, you know. And also Guru Maharaj says, in the time of Prabhupada, meaning Saraswati Thakur, he said, many devotees suggested forming a governing body. And he said, but Prabhupada never agreed that, not even for a moment. And, you know, like in his own lifetime. And he said, and he would say to us, no, don't become a governor, become governed. Become a disciple, be governed. Then, you know, don't be anxious to be the boss or be in charge, and, you know, make some kind of position for yourself. Because then you'll be, you know, your devotion will be spoiled by that. You know, so try to always maintain a humble position. And that's why once when someone here referred to me as the temple president in front of Govinda Maharaj, and Govinda Maharaj said, no, there's only one president of Chaitanya Saraswat Math, and that's me. Meaning him, you know, said that Guru Maharaj made me president acharya of this mission. And so he didn't call his temple leaders temple president, he called them secretary. And he said that's a more humble title, and I like that better, you know, the more humble position. We try to be like humble and try to see ourselves as servant. When Saraswati Thakur, when they made the first Vyasa Puja festival, and they're honoring him on his appearance day, in his lecture that he gave afterwards, first of all he said that what kind of person am I that I'm sitting here and hearing all this praise about myself from those people who consider them myself to be my disciples, He said this is even an animal would be ashamed to sit on this chair and hear all of this, He said, but I'm only accepting this for my Guru Maharaj, I'm accepting this praise for my Guru Maharaj, not for me. But when he began his talk, he said he addressed his disciples, my friends who have come to save me. He said that to them. That's how he addressed them. And this was what he saw his disciples as being. And he said that, that I've made this mission, this Gaudiya Math, and all of the services are my responsibility. The worship of the deity, the cooking, the upkeep of the temple, the clean. So, but I'm just one man. I can't do all of that. So Krishna has sent all of you to help me with that. But I consider you as my friends who've come to save me. Now this is like the proper ego of a Vaishnava, Not that that someone will say, oh, they have to come and bow down to me and beg forgiveness for their Vaishnava aparad against me, and this is like childish, foolish nonsense. That's almost less than a Kanishta Adhikari. Even a Kanishta Adhikari he may think that his service is the best, and his relationship with Krishna is the most important and all of that, and not give so much regard to the Vaishnavas. But I think even most Kanishta Adhikaris would not consider that I'm a Vaishnava, anyone who doesn't like me is an aparadi, or against me, this is so foolish. And this is the opposite of what we're taught. Completely the opposite. So if by accepting that dress and that honor and all of those things, that it just becomes like another kind of form of ego, then you miss the point altogether. Then really, and it shouldn't be because you want to run away from the world. I'll take sannyas because I can't handle this world or whatever. It should be that really I want to run to Krishna. That should be the attitude. Not that I want to run away from the world, because you can't run away from the world. It'll just come at you in another form. So it's a balance. We have to give honor to the form, but Srila Guru Maharaj says that too. I remember he said one time he was traveling with some god brothers. They're all sannyasis, right? All of them. And they stayed at someone's house, and they were given a room, like 4 of them to stay. There's only one bed. So then the discussion was who should sleep on the bed, right? So they were saying, oh, he's the senior, he should sleep on the bed, all of that. And then Guru Maharaj said, no, he should sleep on the bed because he has disciples. And if his disciples hear that he slept on the floor while his godbrothers slept on the bed, that won't be good for their faith. So he should sleep on the bed. So then, this is all of these, proper adjustment. There has to be proper adjustment. And none of these other things really are of any substantial consideration. But it takes a particular kind of introspection to be able to differentiate between the form and the substance. And that's really the most important thing. But Srila Maharaj says, you know, and you can read it in Sri Guru and His Grace, that he's talking about God brother gurus as one of the, you know, chapters perhaps, and there he says, like, in the public, you have to show honor to the guru who may be your god brother. You have to show honor to him for the sake of the faith of his disciples, right? Because our business is promoting faith. It's not like breaking faith of anybody or damaging people's faith. Because by having faith in Guru, we have faith in Krishna. So we need to promote that. He said, but when in the private, when you're in the room with your god brother, he may be Guru, maybe you're not Guru, but behind the closed door, you can give a slap to his face. If you know, because you have a different relationship. The god brother, you have a different relationship with them than the disciples have with them. But that you can't show that in the public, you know. And one devotee came out one day, when we were in the back garden. He came and he slapped me in the face, and I said, "Oh, what's that for?" And he said, "Guru Maharaj said you could slap your god brother on the face." I said, "Don't think it was like encouraging that, you know. It's just a principle." Anyway, I'm sure I deserved it. But so, you know, then all of these things have to be taken into consideration within a mission. Within a mission, there has to be some hierarchy and some, you know, proper way of behaving and so on. And so we honor that, we respect that, try to follow that. But it may not be our conviction, you know, within. That doesn't mean that because I know something about that person and know that actually I don't think they're fit for that position. And I may even say that to him, to his face, but I'm not going to say that to him in a public forum, because that would be dishonorable. So, you know, all of these things there has to be some adjustment there, according to and especially when it's within a mission, because there has to be, that structure has to be observed there, that will encourage the deepest kind of response from the disciples, that their faith will be encouraged, and the maximum service capacity will be drawn from them, because ultimately that's for their benefit, you know. Then, and we're all sadhakas, you know, like we're all practitioners, we're all students. And Guru Maharaj told that to the ISKCON GBC when they came to see him, you know. They were telling something, and Guru Maharaj, they made some resolution, and Guru Maharaj said, "I consider that to be unhappy and bigoted." And they were like, "Well, you know, we've made that decision, you know, like we're the authority." And Guru Maharaj said, "I'm not under your committee, and I consider you all to be students, not masters. You are all students." And then one of them said, Kirtananda Swami said, "Yes, we are students. We are students of Prabhupada." And Guru Maharaj said, "Yes, you are his students, but I'm his friend. Can you not see the difference there?" You know? So all of these things have to be, you know, considered in a special, not special, but a mature way. I think when, you know, I know there's so much criticism of those 11 gurus after Prabhupada and all that, whether it was real, whether it wasn't real. But Srila Maharaj's take on that, if you like, was whoever put them there, or, you know, whether it was by design or whether it was, whatever it was, they're in that position now. And we should try to support that, you know, because it's not an easy thing to be in that position. And they're taking all these disciples, qualified or not, but we have to try and support that for them, that they will do their best, that they will bring out the best in the new people. Someone has to do that service, right? When the new people come, who are you going to send them to? Somebody have to be. They were maybe 10 years in the mission before, if that. Satsvarup Maharaj was the oldest of those 11. He was 36. Can you imagine? 36 when he became like this guru. And all of them else were younger than him. So it was not surprising that they hadn't got a clue what they were doing and just making, like the best impression of Prabhupada that they could, right? Getting their name and the pad name and, all of that and their chair and, they didn't have anybody to help them with that. So Guru Maharaj wanted to help them with that. So that he would say, so many people coming under the banner of Swami Maharaj and Mahaprabhu, we don't want them to go away disappointed. They're not, try to help them. Do relief work. Then, so, then, I don't know, if that answers your question, but I think, you have to adjust, even if it's not what your inner feeling, that you have to still honor that person. For the sake of the harmony of the mission, you have to do that. Of course, if someone's out and out a rogue, and cheating people, that's another thing that has to be shown. That Srila Guru Maharaj, that happened after Saraswati Thakur, right? Guru Maharaj said that, there were like 3 main factions after Saraswati Thakur. One said no gurus. We won't have any gurus after him. And others said many gurus. There'll be many gurus of the disciples of Saraswati Thakur. And then others said, no, we should be just one guru and unite everyone under him. So initially Guru Maharaj was in favor of that. And, they say, that Saraswati Thakur never named any successor and all that, and that's true. But in his will, it did say in his will, clearly, I've seen it, albeit an English translation, but I believe it to be accurate. He said, the preaching of Rupa Raghunath will continue under the direction of Ananta Vasudev Prabhu. So if that's like not a recommendation, I don't know what is. So then Guru Maharaj supported him as the next Acharya and everything. At that time he was a brahmachari. Later he took sannyas. But then it came out that he was having some clandestine relationship with his god sister, and there were like love letters between the two of them, and those love letters were given to Guru Maharaj, and Guru Maharaj had to then expose him for that. So although he initially supported him, and in Guru Maharaj's words, we thought that there should just be one Acharya and we should rally everyone under them. So, but then we realized, no, there will be many Acharyas, and so we had to change our way of thinking. So, then not everything's carved in stone. And, historically, when we look back historically, we can say, I think with quite a big degree of certainty, that the successor of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And he obviously didn't see that about himself, but his godbrothers saw that. Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj wrote, anyone who doesn't follow Sridhar Maharaj cannot claim to be a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Then, but it was the history, right? It was just how things happen. But everything happens by the will of Krishna. So, the fact that he was there for that time, and just as a kind of off from that was one day I was with Govinda Maharaj in Calcutta, and he said, "Oh, you see that lady over there?" He said, "Yes." He said, "She's a disciple of Saraswati Thakur," and he said, "And this, like one of the sannyasis of our mission," he said, he bought her to come and serve here, and he's very proud that he found her and bought her here." And he said, "But I have not told him, but she's the woman that Vasudeva was having the relationship with." Anyway, and Gurudev was laughing about that. So, all these things happen. But everything comes out as it's meant to eventually, Because someone was asking me about that, right? The Rupanuga letter, that saying that Prabhupada said Sri Maharaj was responsible for the breakup of the Gaudiya Math, and because he gave support to this unqualified person and so on, So and one of my friends from ISKCON was asking me about that. So what do you say about that? And I say, well, why are you making a big deal about that? Because let's say that that's true, right? And I don't say that the Guru can never make a mistake. What does Guru Maharaj say? The Guru means the inspired side of the Vaishnava, right? It doesn't mean they're not mortal anymore. Although we are to think of them as Siddha Purush devotee. But still, so we can say, in hindsight, yeah, maybe we can say Sridhar Maharaj made a mistake by supporting that. He would say that also, So, about supporting that person. But why are you making such a big deal of that? Because if the Gaudiya Math had not broken apart after Saraswati Thakur, there wouldn't be any International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Prabhupada wouldn't have come out and made his mission like that. You would all, if you were at all, you would all be initiated by someone from the Gaudiya Math instead. And Chaitanya Saraswat Math wouldn't have come out from that if there wasn't a breakup of the Gaudiya Math. It was inevitable and it was, we can say, it was Krishna's will. It was Krishna's will. And we're all the gainers because of that. Otherwise, we don't know when Prabhupada went to his godbrothers and asked them, you pay for me to go to preach in the West, and they didn't know him very well, right? He was a chemist, grihasta. He wasn't so involved with the Gaudiya Math day to day there. He didn't live in the Math or anything. So then his godbrother, who was the head of a particular branch of the mission, said to him, live here for 1 year and serve here. After 1 year, we'll consider, sending you. And in his biography it said, but Prabhupada couldn't wait for that, right? And he said he didn't want to just be there ringing bells in the temple, right? So and this is from Satsvarup Maharaj's biography of Prabhupada, right? So the first volume, which actually was published second because there was much more research needed for that. It's called A Lifetime in Preparation, right? So they took it to the Bug Bazaar Gaudiya Math to offer to Saraswati Thakur in his room there, the ISKCON devotees, and they took that book there. And then after, they asked for it back, as prasad, and they said, no, we're keeping it. You offered it here, we're keeping it. And they not only they kept it, they read it. And then they came running to Guru Maharaj. Oh, he says that our Guru and we're all just ringing bells, in the temple, And this is like a aparad, they're saying like this, And Guru Maharaj said, his kirtan is so big that if he gives you the position of a bell ringer in his kirtan, you should consider yourself to be blessed by that. So that was Guru Maharaj's vision on that. So all of these things, they're all happening as they're meant to happen. When you're caught up in that, you may not see it. You may think, "Oh my God, what's going on? This is terrible." But everything happens by the grace of the Lord and by the will of the Lord. We know that. It can't happen unless the Lord wills it. But that we see that in hindsight. We can't see that when it's happening, when we're going through it. Generally, we can't see that. And, we know that when somebody something happened, somebody said to Prabhupada, like he'd made some mess of something, some service he was given by Prabhupada, and then when Prabhupada, like, what happened, and the devotee says, Krishna's will, Krishna's will. And Prabhupada said, no, not Krishna's will, your stupidity. So, but later on, whatever happens, we can say, must be Krishna's will, otherwise how can it happen? So, but this is one of the main teachings that we hear from Srila Sridhar Maharaj, is to try to see the difference between the form and the substance. And when the two come to clash, we must always give our submission to the substance, because that's the important thing. The form can change, and it does change all the time. The form can change, but we become attached to that and thinking that that's like how it always has been and that's how it must be for the future, but that's not necessarily true. Form is always changing. That, you can say the only one thing in this world, the material world, that is a constant is change. It's the only thing. Nothing else remains. Only change is the only constant in this world. So then we have to adapt to that change, and try to see how to apply the Krishna conscious solution to that change, because that must also always be there, because Krishna consciousness is a constant. When Guru Maharaj asked those GBC people, they're coming asking 3-4 days questions, and then Guru Maharaj said, today I want to ask you a question. Yes, what's your question? And he said, can you tell me what is Krishna consciousness? And they're all giving some, opinion. Guru Maharaj said, yeah, that's okay then. Kirtananda Swami, what Prabhupada taught us, that's Krishna consciousness. And Guru Maharaj appreciated that, but he said, yes, but what is that he taught you? And anyway, Guru Maharaj wasn't satisfied by any of their answers, and then they said, so Maharaj, you tell us, what is Krishna consciousness? And Guru Maharaj's reply was, Krishna consciousness is reality, and you would be very well served to become acquainted with that. That would be very good if you could become acquainted with that. All right. So we'll stop for today and do Arati now. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Bhagya Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees Ki Jai. All the world devotees Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi.